Hello everyone, my name is Andres Fernandez and today we'll be creating a navigation matrix. Navigation matrix is one image used for navigation whereby parts of that image appear based on mouse position and corresponding background position that we set in the CSS. So let's look at an example of a site that uses this technique. Apple.com has a really nice clean navigation, and you can see that the menu item is using images. So if you hover over the item, you see one image, you click on it, you see another, and if you go to the actual page, you see yet another image. So let's view the source code just to see what's going on behind the scenes. So we scroll down and we find an unordered list with an ID of global nav. So let's look for that in the CSS file to see if we can see what exactly Apple is doing in this case. So we scroll up and we see two CSS files. I'm going to grab the global base.css file, copy it, and paste it in the browser. And now we scroll down and look for that global nav ID. So there we have it. We see the width, the height, margin, and padding. But if you look closely, you see a link to an image, a PNG file. So let's copy that and paste it into the browser. And aha, there is the navigation matrix. You can see that Apple is using it to control the images that appear based on the position of the mouse. Now, the navigation matrix has actually been around for a while. One of the first references that I know of is at superfluousbanter.org, released in 2004. Talks about this navigation matrix. If you want, more information, you can check that site out, as well as SitePoint's book, The Art and Science of CSS. They have a section devoted to the navigation matrix. And just for more information, CSS Sprites, sort of a related topic, you can check that out, as well as, of course, NetTuts always has great articles and a wealth of information on all kinds of tricks. So what I want to do now is go over the page itself. So here's a standard template, and rather than type out everything, I'm going to go ahead and just paste in the unordered list that we will be using for this example. So here I have a nav with 5 items: home, about, gallery, services, and contact. And each item has its own ID. So we'll be using that in this example. And so next, here are the steps. We're going to follow these steps for our Photoshop image, our navigation image. We're going to create it around the corners. As you can see, all these steps we'll be going through. Save it as a PSD. Change the background colors. Change the text. Combine the images. Finalize it, and then save it. Okay, now I'm going to jump into Photoshop and actually create the image. First, I already downloaded the Apple image, the navigation, and let's analyze that a little bit. So if you look, you zoom in, you see all 4 images again. Let's see the image size. All right, and we'll remember that number here just for a moment. And if we look at the width of the first item, you can see it's about 117, 118 or so, as well as the height, right around 36, 38 to the next one or so, roundabout. So if we actually go back and look at the CSS, we can see, maybe what Apple's doing, see if we can find those measurements, and there we have it. We see that is the width of the entire image, the height of the one item, as well as the width of the first item. And as you see, as you go down a bit, you can see the background position changes depending on your mouse state. And Apple's just changing the location of the image that appears. All right. So let's jump back to Photoshop here. And now I want to go ahead and create a new image. And that size is fine. All right. So the first thing I want to do is let me change my screen mode here so it doesn't get too busy for you. I'm going to go ahead with the rectangular marquee tool. I'm going to draw a rectangle across the screen. All right, this will serve as the background of my menu. Get that there. And I want to go ahead and match Apple's colors. So let me go ahead and choose my eyedropper tool and pull up via the window menu the Apple image, and I'm going to select the first color from that first menu image, which I call the upstate. All right, and then I'm going to switch my colors around, and then I'm going to choose the bottom part of that gradient image so I can somewhat match Apple's image. All right, and I choose my gradient, and while holding shift so I draw a straight line, I draw my gradient. And oops, looks like I have it backwards, so let me try that again. And there we go. All right, close enough for now. So next step is, let's see, I'm going to deselect it, which I just did, and I'm going to choose my calculator because I want to measure the width of each item. So remember the size, we have a 750 of our entire image right now, and I'm going to divide that by 5 for each menu item. So approximately 150 is going to be the width of each item. So I'm going to use the guides to measure that, and I'm looking at the rulers at the top to align it properly. Every 150 pixels, 150, 300, 450, and 600. All right, that looks pretty even. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with that for now. All right. So I have just another little logo, and rather than use the Apple logo, just change it up a bit. So I'm just going to drag it in, my bird logo here. All right, and that'll serve as our home link. Okay, now I'm going to select the text, change the color to black, and now I'm going to go through and add my remaining menu items, which if you remember from the index file, about, gallery, services, and contact. So bear with me here just a moment while I get this set up and organize it. And again, all I'm doing is just typing it using my move tool to move the text in the right position. And almost there. Feel free to fast forward through this. All right. Quite sure why that one guide isn't as clear, but anyway, okay. So there are my images, my text menu items rather. All right. So now what I want to do is I want to actually round off the image, the bar. So I'm going to select the background image, that menu, that gradient that we drew, that layer. And I'm going to click on the rectangular marquee tool again, and I'm going to draw another rectangle around it. Not as wide, just almost to the edges. Okay, leave a little space to the right and left. And now I'm going to go to select at the top and choose inverse, right? So it chooses the inverse of what I just selected. And then I'm going to choose select, modify, smooth. And I'm going to choose a smooth radius of 5 pixels. And if you look closely, you can see the edges have been smoothed out. They're curved a bit. So now what I do is I hit the delete key and it takes effect. Right? You can see how they're smooth, the edges on both sides. All right, so that's one way you can smooth your edges. There are a lot of ways to do it, but that's the way I like to do it. So now what I'm going to do is actually select inverse again so I can keep that menu bar selected. That way it'll allow me to change the color without having to create a new one, and it gets hard because you have to be so exact. If you move it an inch, you just want to make sure you're using that same image, that same size. So rather than draw another one, I'm just going to use the same one. I'm going to save this first image as, to have that nav up. And I'm going to take the color from the second one, right? Just like we did on the first step. My eyedropper tool, I'm selecting the first color, and then I switch it, select the next color, go back, I choose the gradient tool, go back to my image, again with the background layer selected, I add my new gradient, okay, good enough for now. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as well. Again, I'm saving it as a PSD because I want to keep the layers because I want to be able to edit the text here in a minute. If I saved it as a ping, wouldn't be able to do that. All right, so that's my nav hover. And rather than do all 4, just to save time, I'm just going to do 3. Of course, you can do 4 images for your active state. I'm going to skip the active state. Just going to do the up state, the hover, and the you are here state. So I'm selecting the last one. Again, I'm skipping that third image. Just going to make 3 of them instead of 4. Choosing the colors. Selecting my gradient. Again, with that background layer still selected. Again, drawing the gradient. And you know what? Good enough for now. I'll live with that. Go ahead and save this as the final one. Save as. Again, don't do save because you don't want to write over the previous one. All right. And nav current. Okay. So great. Now, I'm going to switch back and look at my steps. So I've done those first 5 steps. Now I'm going to edit the text, then save it as a PNG, combine them into one, finalize the image, and then we're done. All right. So now I'm going to just, on my current and hover, I'm going to change the text color, just make them white. All right. Again, if I hadn't saved it as a PNG, I wouldn't have been able to do this. You want to make sure you keep your layers while you can edit it. You can add if you want to do the gradient, if you want to add drop shadow, customize it a bit more, definitely do that. But again, just to save a bit of time, I'm not going to do all those filter effects. But you can certainly do that. So I saving my image now. Change just the text color to make it a little bit different than the upstate, so you can really see it. And now I'm saving it for web as a PNG, okay? And same name, just .png in my image folder. All right. And I'm going to do the same thing for the hover. Open my hover image, my PSD file. Again, feel free to fast forward through this part. All I'm doing here is changing the text color of my text items. Again, I'm just going to do white, okay? So really between the hover state and the you are here state, all that's changed is the background gradient. You are here meaning the current page that you're on, current state. Okay? So finish that and save for web. Again, as a PNG. It is tall, but that's okay because we're going to combine them into one, and you won't see that. So now it's saved. All right. And let me just show you the upstate. I'm not going to change the text, but all I'm going to do is save it as a PNG, right? I don't need to save or change any text rather. So save for web PNG, and there you have it. All right. So now what I'm going to do is create a new image, and that size is fine. All right. And I'm going to combine those 3 images, those 3 PNG files into this new image. Okay. So I will open the images that I just saved. And let me do that here just a second. Sorry, let me it up just a bit. And screen, full screen. All right. So now I'm going to open those images. The up, hover, and current PNG files. And I'm going to drag them with my move tool. I'm going to select all, drag that entire PNG image into this new blank image that I created. All right. Okay. And I'm going to be careful to position it all the way to the left and the first one all the way to the top. Using window to grab my next image, which is the hover. All right, my second state. And again, being careful to position it to the left. And you can leave space, you don't have to, but I like to do that. It just helps me as I'm going through it. So again, you can put them right up next to each other. It's up to you, as long as you do your measurements right, which we'll do here in a minute. And again, that's the current state, the final one. So you see the hover and current slightly different. And of course the text is different on the first one, as well as the background slightly different. Okay, and you see my 3 layers. All right, so now I want to go ahead and resize it, just so get rid of that bottom background transparency, as well as the, just the extra space that I have on the bottom and the right. Okay, now it's looking a little bit better. And as you can see, I just added a new layer, right? So what I want to do is add vertical lines to separate. And again, this is just some extra stuff. I've chosen my single row column marquee tool. All right. And I'm going to add the lines using this tool. So with my let's see, vertical line selected. Actually, choose this. Sorry about this. I'm going to review the size because my image has changed since I've shortened it. I've cropped it. So now in order to measure it properly, I'm going to take the width of the image, which is 728, and I'm going to divide it by 5. So it's about 145 pixels for each menu item now. So you see it's changed a bit. So make sure you're aware of the sizes if you want to be super accurate, that you know exactly how wide your image is, and so you know how to space it properly. All right, so I've just selected my column, and I'm going to add a color to it. Just a second here. Sorry about this. What did I do? All right. Bear with me 1 second. Uh-oh. Okay, let me just undo this. All right, back to where we were. All right. Again, just to make double sure, because I just slipped my mind, 290 for the second, 435, and 580. So I'm just measuring at which sections I'm going to have to put this this column divider. Okay, that's how wide, approximately 145 pixels each menu item should be. So I draw with the single row marquee, or column marquee tool rather. I add the color with the paint bucket on my vertical line layer. Okay, and I'm just duplicating the layer. And you want to be careful if you want it to go in the exact same fashion as you copy it over, you want to hold down the Shift key as you're dragging it, so that way it stays in the same position. All right, so moving it over, as you can see, right at about the 290 mark, so it just as I calculated. And then again, duplicate the layer, and I'm going to bring that item over, duplicate it, and drag it over with my move tool. Again, being careful to get it to where I measured on the calculator. And just repeating it again, feel free to fast forward. Duplicating the layer, And then I'm just dragging that new layer, that new item, and oops, lost it. So you can just use your arrows to move it back if it gets out of whack. And so now you see the separators. Let me tweak that a little bit here. All right. Okay. All right. So here we are. Now you see them that they're separate. I have, the distinct menu item sections. Okay. So let's see here. Let me draw my guide, or bring it down rather, to just more accurately measure the spacing here. And what I want to do is get rid of, you don't have to do this, but just because I want that space in between to be clear of any lines, I am going to get rid of that here in a second. And I'm just doing my measurements. Let's see. Just so I know exactly where the starting point and the ending point are. So when I do my various mouse states and background position, I know exactly where it ends and where it begins. All right. And again, the line is there, but I just drawing the guide just to be do some double checking. All right. So now let me go ahead and get rid of that line in between and the spacer part. Okay. And all I'm doing is I selected the rectangular marquee tool again and going all the way across. And all I'm going to do is delete. So let me zoom out a bit so you can see. So I'm pressing the delete button on my keyboard on each vertical line layer. Press delete, go to the next layer, just press delete, next layer, delete, and it cleans up that line that's in between. Again, not necessary, because if you measure it properly, you won't even see that, because your position will be just below it or just above it. So, but I just want to do it just to clean it up a bit more. So I'm going to do the same thing for the next spacer. All right. Zoom in a bit. And again, just select through. And let's see. Just delete. Oops, sorry. Okay. Sorry there. Okay. Delete. Choose the different layers of the vertical line and delete. Okay. Great. Now it's cleaned up a bit. So let's go ahead and save this image. This will be our final matrix that we're going to be using. Let me crop it just a bit. At the bottom there's a little bit of space. I just want to make it perfect so there's no extra space on the bottom. All right. Okay, that looks better. Now we can save it. And before we do that, I just want to see my size. Okay, it's changed a bit, 728. All right. So save for web. And this is the final matrix that I will be using in my site. So I'm going to save it as a PNG. Oh, excuse me, as I browse. Okay. Saving it in my image folder, and I'm going to call it nav_main.png. All right, good deal. So now what I'm going to do is go to the file. Let's create the CSS now. All right, rather than type it all in, because we are getting close to the end here, running out of time, I've gone ahead and pasted it in there for you. Please pause and rewind if this goes a little fast. So you see I have the width set at 728 pixels, the height at 40 pixels. If we go back to the image, let me zoom in a bit. Let's go ahead and look at the image size. Scroll to the left just to get ready. All right, image size, you'll see it's 728 pixels. That's the size, the width of our nav. All right, I have it a position relative. I'm referencing the background. Doing that there because there's an issue with IE that will flicker if you don't do that. Margin 0, padding 0, the nav list items are floated to the left. My anchors, position absolute within that relative block. Again, I'm referencing that that image, and the text I'm moving over way off the screen so you don't see it, and doing the overflow hidden so nothing spills over. Going to the up state. Now, you see each particular list item has a specific ID here. I'm doing that so I can pinpoint each menu item specifically, so that way I know exactly what the image corresponds to on the menu item, and I can position that menu and that image accordingly. So notice that the left starts where the item starts, all right? And the background position is just the opposite of the left, okay? So if you look at the image, zoom in a bit, see, pay attention if you can to the rulers, if you can see that. Hopefully it's not too hard to see. That second image, that second menu item starts at 145 roundabout, and that's where I'm starting that. And you continue on. The gallery is the next. That's the starting position. Again, setting the width, and the background position is just the opposite of the left starting position, as you can see at the top. Doing that again all the way across. Same thing, right? So there you see that. Left again for that up state. Go further down, 435. And again, it's the opposite on the background position, and the width on the contact, the left on the contact, 580, background position, negative 580, okay? And make sure you're measuring your widths too, just so you're sure that you're getting the whole width. The contact, in this case, is slightly wider than the other images, so I just made it a little bit wider. All right, so now going down to the hover state. The big difference here is that you're changing your vertical position. Now I'm starting down a bit further. So from the top, I'm moving down, right? And it's the same vertical position for all of them. And of course, the left is whatever the left starting point is for each particular item. So if we look at the ruler on the left side, the vertical ruler, you'll see that that starting point is 45. And that's just the way I have it in this image because I have a little bit of space in between. All right. And of course, the second image is the same size as the top image. So don't have to change anything there. Okay. So, and then the current state. Again, you're just changing, just like the hover state, the vertical position, which in this case would be 90. But also, if you notice, there's also an additional identifier. And we'll see that here in a second. But that basically lets me know, depending on the page I'm on, then yes, you're going to reference that current state. Okay. And there you have it. You see it's at that measurement. Going back, let's go to Firefox and let's see what this looks like. In my case, my local host, I set it up to be nettuts.dev. That's just what I did. I customized my virtual host names like that. So yours would be localhost. Okay. So there it is. Looks nice. Appears right. And the hover works. That's great. So we don't have any subpages yet. Let's make one here. And what's great about this technique is all you have to do is copy your home page, your index code, whatever page you're referencing, make a new one, and just change the body ID. When you do that, again, that last current state is referencing that code within the body ID tag, right? That last bit of CSS code that we saw. And that's all I have to do. I don't have to change anything to the navigation menu. So when I click on About, you see it knows, because within that body About ID, it knows to reference that state for that About link right there. See that? Because body About there, it knows to reference it. That's my starting point, and then it for both the horizontal and the vertical. Okay, unless you think this doesn't work in Internet Explorer, I have a Windows computer I'm also connected to with IE Tester. Let's see, Internet Explorer 6 looks fine. As you can see, I am in Windows XP and looks good. Works just as expected, rounded corners, and it works when you click on it. Internet Explorer 7 works just fine, and that works as well. That wraps up the navigation matrix. Thanks very much for watching.